out of our comprehensive plan, which was passed recently. That is a update to the city's zoning code. The zoning code, I was somewhat surprised personally to see it as a #1 priority for the city. But when you think about how many lives it touches and how it guides the future development of this community, and how the lack of zoning over time, or the lack of thoughtful zoning over time, has led to some less than intentional development, it's a pretty impactful thing. And so American Structure Point was the winner to our request for proposals a couple months ago. We've had several meetings already, and they've had a day of meetings today, and they'll have a day of meetings tomorrow. One of the things that we really liked about American Structure Point was their blend of practicality, how the zoning code can be useful and important in people's lives, as well as their emphasis on engagement with the community, which is why they're here today. They met with several stakeholder groups today. We'll meet with more tomorrow. The goal is that the end result, which is a new zoning code that is presented to City Council to vote on, is something that reflects the future wants and needs of the community. And so we may end up watching free streaming television. I don't think we will. I think that I'll start handing off, though, to Mr. Baird, who is leading the team from Structure Point, and he can take it away.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mayor. So actually, first, Michael Salvador is going to do, basically because we've had some technical problems. Michael is going to talk about, in general, we had some questions from the stakeholder committees about, and a little confusion because we have multiple projects going on with the city. So Michael's going to kind of give a holistic view, and then I'll get into the details of this project.
Thanks, David, and good evening. Hopefully we'll get the technical difficulties sorted out. You know, you always test things, and we tested it 3 times before your meeting, and then, of course, you know, this happens, but we'll get it there. So in the interim, as David said, and as the mayor mentioned, my name is Michael Salvador. I'm from American Structure Point. I'm our community development director, which basically means I get the fun job of overseeing all the stuff that we've got going on at each of our communities. And Chiillicothe is one of our most important communities that we work with in the state, and we really value all of the work and relationships that we have here. We have been engaged by the city to work on a number of projects in recent years. We're currently in design of the Marietta lift station right now and are working with the utility staff to advance that critical project along. And we were also, about a year ago, through a very convoluted process that we hope to come back and talk to you about in a few weeks, hired by both the city and the county to be your procured planner through Appalachia Community Grant. And so we've been working with the mayor and the county commissioners and the relevant staff at both of those governments over the past year and a half to develop concepts for that application. And I know that we have spoken to a number of you off and on over the past about that, and have worked diligently on those proposals and concepts to advance those applications. So by way of quick introduction, in addition to David and I here tonight, we have Matthew O'Rourke, who leads our planning and economic development group. And he also oversees our landscape architecture team, about a group of 20 passionate planners and LAs who work in communities all throughout the Midwest. And Ashley Newnham, who's our senior planner in our Columbus office, who works with me. Ashley and I are from Columbus. Matt is from Indiana, and David is from Nashville, and both not Nashville, Knoxville area. And all right, well, one of the, it's Tennessee. Yes. Sorry about that. Okay. Apologies about that. I'm trying to calibrate my distance between the microphone and my mouth. Anyway, so that is the way of the quick introduction. Now that we have the technology working again, I'll turn it back over to David. But just as that level set, we do a lot of work with the city. We're very proud of our relationship. We have a lot of different things going on, and we will be back a number of times to address this body as those projects move along. But for tonight, it's the zoning code, and it's David.
Thanks, Michael. We've got everything set now. So as I said, my name is David Baird, and my job at American Structure Point is to lead the zoning rewrites, the land development rewrite projects. Obviously, we're very happy to be here with Chiillicothe, and so I'm just going to give a kind of a general overview tonight about the process, how this works. This is our first site visit, so this is a process that takes about 12 months, 13 months to complete. So it is not a quick process, but it is a process that we do very deliberately and have done with many jurisdictions across the country and across Ohio. So with that, this is just kind of what we're going to talk through. Michael was able to introduce our team here tonight. The project itself, the zoning ordinance, of course. I think the mayor did give a good synopsis there. Is that it is really something that can really lead to disinvestment if the best. And I said this to the mayor in our interview. The best zoning ordinances are the ones that restrict the development you do not want in your city, but don't over restrict and hurt something that you may want. And so that's what I think has kind of led to the city looking to redo this code. Is there's some areas where it's actually hurting with investment. So saying that, we're going to kind of go through about our trip here today, and I will say that we're going to go in more detail with what we call the Code Advisory Committee. So this is just kind of a general overview for you tonight. So from that, we've kind of gone through. Again, Michael's kind of listed through what our team is here tonight. Like you said, we do a number of things at American Structure Point, but these are really the processes that I really focus my attentions on. There we go. So this is very much for the Planning Commission. Let's see what we can get here. Yes. So I want to go through and talk about kind of this process for you tonight. Really, the overview is on our first phase. This is where we're really learning about the process. We're really just getting involved in hearing about the applications and the requests. We're going to go through and create what we call an annotated outline, which really goes through and looks at where the process is today and where we want to move to. We'll have basically a table of contents that will show you kind of where things are and where they were, and we'll kind of step through that. So we have some other things that we do. We like to call it a land use adjustment table, as well as a zoning district adjustment table. And then we're like I said previously, we're meeting with what we call a community advisory committee, the Code Advisory Committee, that we're going to work through. And today we've gone through and done what we call our stakeholder interviews, and that's given us a lot of good feedback, which I'm going to kind of talk through a little bit more here. So then after we're finished with that first phase where we're talking through some things, we're going to head on to the drafting, and that's where we're really going to get into the weeds of, and we like to call this an iterative process. So we go from, we take a draft, we give that to city staff, they review that. We give that to that Code Advisory Committee, they review that as well. And then we kind of step through the process. So, a lot of times there may be something we don't get exactly quite right on the first go around. And that's really why we do this iterative type thing, is so that we can flesh those things out. And then we go on to the revision and the review of the code draft. This is really that last phase that we like to call adoptions. The city said that having some checklists and flow charts were very important for them. So we'll make sure that that gets involved as well. So this is really the typical layout of how you want to go through this. But I'm going to skip on over to the goals of the zoning ordinance, which is really the implementation, the comp plan recommendations, the updates for state and federal law and case law, modern best practices. We want to really take a look and make sure that our code has got the best land uses and intuitive tables and graphics, easy to understand. Really don't have a lot of those things today. So a couple things that we really notice and we want to just hit at, we're going to get further into the weeds, is that there are a lot of things that kind of popped up to the surface with conditional uses, that process, and lots being split. So we're going to spend a lot of time. We've already kind of reviewed this for you. We're going to spend a little time with that. We're also going to look at what are the actions that the Board of Zoning Appeals goes. That really tells us where there are issues in the code and where are the things we need to really look at. So with that, these are the stakeholder groups that we talked with today. And really, we started with the city staff and the department heads, the developers, the realtors, and the brokers. We also were able to have lunch with your planning staff, and then we also had the design professionals, nonprofits, and business leaders association. So there was a lot of good stuff, a lot of good things that were talked about today, and I'll get into a little of that here in a minute. So with that, kind of next steps, what we're going to be doing, we're going to go to the stakeholder meetings. We're going to do the drafts of the code audit, and then the stakeholder meetings. We'll get back a little bit more into that, and then we'll go on to finalizing that code audit. So let's see. I'm going to shift back to something here. Somehow we got the wrong thing up here, so I'm going to apologize. Pull something else. Okay. There we go. So, I want to talk about some of the key themes that we heard today. And one really, I think, one real promising thing that we heard is a lot of times, oh, we're not on that now. Let's see, I want to make sure everyone can see. There we go. So key themes that we noticed, and so a lot of times when we do these processes, we split these up into different stakeholder groups so that people that view the code similarly can give us their view. And so what we noticed this time in speaking with those groups that I just went through is there's a lot of commonality between the groups. That's good news for this process. We have another client right now where when we talked with some people that were involved in the agricultural community, this was a county code, we heard a very, very different story from when we talked to developers. So when we do that, we think, okay, we've got to find some middle ground here because two different groups view the code very differently. That is not what we're hearing so far, which I think is good news because it can. I think that getting to a place where different groups are comfortable with where the code is, I'm hopeful will not be as difficult as it can be in some communities. So that's good to know. Some of the key things that we noticed was some challenges with redeveloping small lots. We talked about a lack of lot consolidation within your R3 zoning district. I think there may be a misperception in the community. There appears to be some times where some people have wanted to purchase a neighboring lot and they haven't gone through what we call a lot consolidation process, and they've asked, can I put an accessory structure on that, and that hasn't worked out for them. we think that there's a much easier way to do this, so we're gonna work through that. There's also a lot of we heard from a lot of the groups about a lack of certainty. Someone who was even on the BZA told us that when I say the BZA, I mean the Board of Zoning Appeals, that we approve some of the same variances over and over and over again. So a way to look at that is maybe we can write that in the code. We heard a lot from the groups about maybe can we reduce the side setbacks. We heard a lot about increasing landscaping regulations, and we heard a lot about limiting off-premise signage, and we heard a lot about updating property maintenance and nuisance code. So those are just some of the things we've heard. We're going to hear more as we're here. But with that, I'm just going to conclude our short presentation here. Again, this is our first trip. We'll be back in a couple months, and we'll be meeting with our Code Advisory Committee. Of course, we're meeting with the Planning Commission later, and then we'll during our next site visit. But we're excited to be here. It's a lengthy process, but our first review is that there's a lot that we can do in the code that's going to improve not only the standards that you have, but also the processes that you have. So with that, I'd like to open it up for any comments, questions, and that you might have.
Is this going to result in an overall rewrite that would come before council then to look at the total code as a whole?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's I mean, sometimes we call it an update. We're gonna rewrite as much as needs to be rewritten. But if something doesn't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If something is working, of course, we're gonna keep that. But on first glance, we think there are definitely some things we've already identified that we can improve this process.
Are any of these changes going to be like relative to residential versus commercial, rezoning those?
Yeah, it very well could be. Yes.
Interesting.
Will you have the opportunity to come back to council as you progress? The only reason I say that is there may be issues that could be eliminated in the process as opposed to waiting to a final product when everybody's going to try to go through that at city council here. So that's just a suggestion, and I know you've got a lot of things on your plate there that you've already set up, but I would think it would be helpful for some of the city council members to get a chance to participate enough so that they know exactly how things are progressing.
Sure. No, and we're happy to do that. We're happy to schedule our meetings at a time that it's we kind of like to do multiple meetings on one day. So yeah, we're happy to do that. I think there's some key steps in the process where we could definitely do that, particularly when we come up with what the new zoning districts would be. I'll mention this to everyone. The city has a lot of different zoning districts, and so and a lot of different conditional uses. So I definitely, when we get to where we've kind of fleshed some of these things out, I think that's a good point to come back to the council, because that is a point where we want you to be comfortable with where we're moving forward, because if we need tweaks, we need to do it then, I guess is a good way to put it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, sure. We definitely plan on having general open to the public meetings. That is part of the process as well. We typically do the general open meetings after we've kind of gotten a little bit of a draft. It's a little bit easier to say, hey, I like this or I don't like this. And so, yes, in future trips, we will definitely have. No. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sure.
And ward representation would be amazing throughout the state process
Sure.
because they're your citizens.
Sure. And that's a very good comment. We're happy to add stakeholders meetings to the list, and we're happy to do that at our next site visit. We can only do so many today, but we are happy to set those up. Like I said, we'll probably be back in June, and that would be a perfect time. We'll work with staff to make that happen. That's not a problem at all. That's not a problem at all. We want to get as many stakeholder groups together as we possibly can. Like I said, we could only do so many meetings today, but if there's a demand to do that, we're happy to do it. I will say that the stakeholder process, the reason for doing that is you want to have groups of people that view the code similarly. I think I mentioned that because you want to hear not only what one person is saying, but when there's an agreement between everyone that's in the room, that's powerful, And so that's why we group it that way. We have found that those types of public engagement for these types of process are more effective. So whether we do citizen meetings by ward, I think that would be a way to do it. You have a certain area of the city. How do you view this in your area of the city? So yes, we're more than happy to do that. Mhm. Well, yeah, we'll be happy to set that up the next time we're here. So, any other general questions from the audience?
A couple things. I'm glad you talked to nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. This code advisory committee, who is that, and are they open meetings?
Yes, they are open meetings to the public, and we welcome anyone to come to those. The Code Advisory Committee is made up of, so we had the 5 different stakeholder groups that we had. We've had somebody from each of those that is on that. But yes, those meetings are open to the public.
And
So
where are they going to be announced?
Well, our next site visit will probably be in a couple months. I can't give you an exact date of when the next schedule would come out, but there would be substantial advance notice of that. So, yeah.
Okay,
We're close on time here now to the city council meeting, so maybe one more question if you've got it, but I don't
Yeah.
want to run over.
How does this help with the affordable housing situation that we have all over the country, including here, such as subsidized housing, permanent supportive housing, and the emergency shelter that left people out cold for a long time because we had zoning issues?
Yeah. So as far as housing affordability, one of the things that came up is maybe there's some zoning districts we could add duplexes or multifamily in certain areas. The best way I have found to help with the housing affordability is to allow more units in areas of the city that you couldn't already. Because when you do that, you could have an investor who comes in and says, okay, I can only do, it actually helps with investors doing a project, because if they can have 4 units instead of 2 units, then they're more willing to take that on. So those are some of the ways we can address that. Yeah, sure.
Thanks for the presentation. We really appreciate it. And thanks, Mayor, for bringing the folks in to talk to us and give us an opportunity to hear what you've got to say. And we look forward to the future presentations that you'll have for us. But thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I raised 3 children and have 3 adult children, and I've never heard any place be this quiet. So this is impressive to me. I'm just waiting another minute till 7 o'clock to start. Well, it's 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call the meeting of the Chiillicothe City Council to order. Welcome to the April 22nd, 2024 regular City Council meeting, and this is being held at 26 South Paint Street here in Chiillicothe. At this point, I would ask the clerk to call the attendance roll.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Bennett,
Present.
Payne,
Here.
Nickerson,
Here.
Barnes,
Here.
McKeever,
Here.
Dement, Henderson,
Here.
Prohl,
Here.
Creed.
Here.
Mr. Dement informed me that he would not be here today. He had to be out of town. Is there a motion to excuse Councilman Dement from tonight's meeting? Mr. Prohl, seconded by Mr. McKeever. Please call the roll on the motion.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Prohl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Motion passes. Mr. Creed, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
President Shoemaker, at this time, I would make a motion that we waive the 3-day receipt rule for the updated agenda with the correct date.
Is there a second? Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Prohl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Changes adopted. We'll now, everyone should have received the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the minutes? Ms. Bennett? Second by Ms. Payne. Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Prohl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Minutes are adopted as submitted. We'll move to reports of committees. Development Committee would be first with Councilman Dement. But since he's not here, is there anyone else that has a report relative to the Development Committee? Hearing none, we'll move on to the Engineering Committee. Mr. Barnes.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have nothing to report tonight and nothing pending on the agenda.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Finance and Technology Committee. Mr. Prohl.
Oddly enough, we have nothing on tonight's agenda, so we have nothing to report tonight. And this is quite an agenda, so that's really saying something. Thank you.
Thank you. Human Resources Committee, Ms. Payne.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. First, we have a new assignment, assignment 24031, the non-bargaining employees ordinance. I would like to schedule a committee meeting for Monday, April 29th at 4:30 here in council chambers. Second, we have one item on the agenda tonight. Item number 1, Chief of Staff position. Before our last city council meeting, we held a review session for this position, hearing from city council members, the public, and the mayor on why or why not we should fill this position. Since then, I had the opportunity to sit down with Clint Boggs, Tricia Hall, and Seth Brown from the mayor's office to gain a better understanding of their positions, current job descriptions, and their day-to-day. I want to add that these are 3 very talented young people that are doing an exceptional job for the city in fulfilling their job responsibilities and any additional responsibilities that fall on their positions, such as the increased number in grants coming into that office that they are maintaining, and that's a good problem to have. Increase in social media. The land bank alone, although not in job descriptions, has been taking 25 and at times 50% of planning and development's time. Taking care of everyday mundane items that come into that office that really do not fall under any of their positions, but someone needs to take care of these items. They would like to be able to spend some time on staff engagement, morale building throughout city departments, but have not had that time yet. May 6th is the Appalachian Grant anticipated announcement date. If awarded, this $40 million grant will need to be managed and spent within 2 years, which means the scheduling of all these projects, hiring the contractors, and all that work goes into this. Increased management due to World Heritage designation. They're not sure what that even looks like. They're talking to other cities that have received World Heritage designation so they can kind of try to anticipate. And the presentation we had, they're definitely working on that piece, working on updating codes. It is clear that the responsibility falling on this office has changed and increased a great deal since the chief of staff position has been filled. They clearly need some additional support. This is not in any way to say that other areas of the city are not stretched thin, such as our police and fire departments. I would encourage these departments to put plans together for their staffing needs and propose them. I agree 100% with what Mr. Creed said at our last meeting. Safety should always be a top priority in our city. I feel it is my responsibility as an elected council member to focus on and advocate for all areas of need within our city. I would ask council support on the chief of staff position this evening. Thank you. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Parks and Rec Committee, Dr. Henderson.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Parks, Rec, and Tourism has one item on tonight's agenda, and that is involving not feeding wildlife on public lands. This past Saturday, the Pump House held the Earth Day celebration. I think that went very, very well. There were a lot of trees that were handed out from the Tree Commission. And speaking of the Tree Commission, they have been very, very hard at work. And if you have a tree that is in a city right-of-way that needs attention, please reach out to the Tree Commission. Absolutely wonderful folks there. And then this coming Friday, April 26th, is Arbor Day celebration. There will be kids from Chiillicothe City Schools who will learn a ton about all kinds of topics from beekeeping to different types of trees, and they will even be planting a few trees. Let's see. May 5th will be the community plant sale, and that will take place in Yaktangi Park at the Lions Shelter. And then May 3rd will be the William Gozy Parade. And I think that is all we really have at the, oh, we did have a committee meeting earlier this evening regarding the repair and maintenance of the cabooses, and there will be further discussion to come along with those. And that's all I have. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was trying to answer your question, who William Gozy, the parade was for. He's a student at Chiillicothe City Schools, sophomore maybe, that's sick, and they're going to do a parade for him. I thought I heard someone wanted to know who that was. So it's a child that's going through some treatments.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Safety and Service Committee, Mr. Creed.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have 4 items on the agenda tonight. Number 2 and 3 are up for their third reading. They are appropriating money for the police department for the CAD system and appropriating money for the Chiillicothe Fire Department to repair engine 1. I would appreciate support on those 2 issues when they come up for a vote. Next, we have item number 10, which is accepting and appropriating $163.80 for sale of scrap metal to Rumpke. And number 14, which is a resolution approving the 911 plan for the Ross County and the city of Chiillicothe. So we'll let those go on to their next read. Thank you.
Thank you. Utilities Committee, Mr. McKeever.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Utilities has nothing on the agenda for tonight.
Thank you. City Services Committee, Ms. Nickerson.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have one item on the agenda, item number 12, an ordinance accepting and appropriating insurance reimbursement funds in the amount of $8,006.95. And at the appropriate time, I'll ask to waive the 3-read rule. Thank you.
Thank you. Community Affairs Committee, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. We have on the agenda tonight item number 13 about the language for the rule of council. And that's the end of our committee.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to reports of officials. Mayor Feeney.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Prior to this meeting tonight, we had a presentation from American Structure Point. American Structure Point is the firm that has been tasked with helping us execute the first goal from our comprehensive plan, which is a zoning code rewrite. I know that sounds very exciting, but it will have large impact for the community for years to come. We had good attendance at that meeting, and I thank the community for attending. Good recommendations out of that committee for how we can get better public participation in that process. I think that one of the reasons American Structure Point was chosen was their emphasis on community engagement and participation. And I think that the end product, which we'll have about a year from now, will be something that really does represent the future goals of the community. Speaking of future plans in the community, City Council is aware this year that we have a pretty significant paving project that is in conjunction with ODOT. This is a Route 50 project. Starts all the way over at Eastern Avenue, comes through town, connects to Main Street, and then goes all the way out Western Avenue. We have already committed more than $500,000 as our match to that project, which is very significant. The bids came in on that project last week substantially higher than what ODOT was expecting, which unfortunately is a theme these days, which would require our match to go up approximately $150,000. We have a meeting tomorrow to discuss potential next steps. The paving project itself the bid came in at more than $3 million. So our share being around $650,000, $700,000, significant project for the city. I think we're in a tough spot because I don't think any of us would expect that bid to be any lower next year. So we're going to have some decisions to make with ODOT. And just as a reference, next year at this time, the Bridge Street project will have gone out to bid, and we will have our match committed for that as well. So I'll be reporting back to council at the next meeting on necessary next steps, if any, based on ODOT's guidance on that project. At the time, I believe we have the funds in reserve to be able to commit to that project this year. It's a necessary project, and my inclination would be to recommend committing so it can be done this year. But I think it will also depend on the funds that ODOT has available as well. Long agenda tonight, and I just want to comment on Councilwoman Payne's comments on item 1. I want to just thank her for that engagement, particularly with the city staff, and just take this opportunity to thank that team in particular for the work that they've been doing. Past 2 months alone, I think we brought in about $4.3 million in grants. And as she mentioned, when those grants come in, it does take more work, but it's a good problem to have. I don't think I had mentioned yet the Tree Commission grant that came in, which is a $300,000 commitment that may result in the recommendation of a part-time arborist to help with city tree work. And so I just want to take a minute to review that council agenda item and suggest why I would ask for your support. For me, this position is essential to the structure of the city. 11 or so years ago, we were in a bad place financially. We had about $450,000 in the bank in the general fund, and many positions were cut. When I say cut, I don't mean that they were removed from our city code. I just mean that we did not have the money to be able to fund them. Firefighters were laid off, and various essential positions were actually cut. Those positions, firefighters were rehired, and we've, through the safety levy, increased the staffing in both the fire and police department by about 14 total people. We've also come through and staffed important positions that had been cut, such as the city auditor's deputy and attorneys in the law director's office. To me, this position is essential to the city, and it's a recognition of our forward momentum and our possibility for the future. I think that it enables us to take a step forward, and as I've thought about it, it is the way the city's it is structured today. I've heard suggestions about restructuring. I've heard suggestions about the need. My recommendation is that we need it today, and my recommendation is also that I'm open to restructuring in that process. But today there is a need. I proposed this position first as a part of the annual budget, and it was a balanced budget. But I was willing to bring it out of the budget and discuss it in the committee meetings, and I think there's been some good engagement. And finally, of the conversations we've had, I just want to emphasize that it is a position that we can afford now, and I'm almost worried that it's a position we can't afford to go without. And with that, I will conclude my report.
Thank you. Auditor Spetnagel.
I do not have anything on the agenda today or anything to report. Thank you.
Law Director Villarreal.
Thank you. I don't have anything on the agenda to report or tell you about. We are still working really hard trying to find some positions, some attorneys that are up to what we expect. It's very difficult. We just lost. I had somebody, it was this close, and Franklin County came in and swooped in and took them. We need to be more competitive, and we will talk about that in the future very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to audience participation. Because we've got a pretty big crowd tonight, I'm going to try to hold this to limiting people to 5 minutes. When you address council, please give your name and address, and I'll try to give you notice with 1 minute left so that you'll know that your comment time is coming to an end. Thank you.
This should be real quick.
Beverly Wilkes, 156 Hanover Drive, Chiillicothe. I wanted to thank Councilmember Kane for going the extra step and meeting with the staff you did to get a better understanding of what this position means. That's great. I know when I went to the committee meeting, it seemed like we were looking at an either or situation. You know, we're going to make our place safer or we're going to have this position. And I say, why can't we have both? Good grief, we both are needed. And why I like the way we could work bipartisan on both of these issues because we're much stronger together. That's it.
Thank you.
My name is Don Wilkes. I live at 156 Hanover in Chiillicothe. Boy, I sure do like spring in Chiillicothe. It's a beautiful town. It's come so far in the past few years to be appealing to visitors, to individual families that want to relocate here, to businesses that look at Chiillicothe as a prospective all-American town that they want to be a part of the growth. And I think that continued direction warrants a continued feeding of ideas and of resources. In my mind, the chief of staff position of the mayor's office can keep the town moving into the next decades to come, to make this a more productive, appealing place for families to settle, for businesses to settle. I love to see how downtown businesses have thrived, and the folks that come in from out of town to enjoy all of the amenities that this town has to offer. But all that does take coordination and integration. That takes time and resources. And I think that a chief of staff position to help coordinate, consolidate, integrate our long-term plans with the various departments, the various wards, council here, makes for sound future planning to keep our growth in this wonderful town going in the right direction.
Thank you.
John Thacker, 990 Columbus Street, apartment 307 in Chiillicothe. Hey, Fourth Ward's great. I want to disabuse somebody first of a notion I heard at a committee meeting earlier. She was saying that there are old people here. I just see a lot of wise people here of all sorts, of all political backgrounds, but certainly all my neighbors. One thing I think all of my neighbors can agree on is that the one thing we want most is to be safe in our home. And I believe that the people who are advancing the no side of item 1 probably have that in mind, and I think it's in sincere effort. However, I would make the suggestion that a yes vote would be more likely to make people safe in the longer run, because that position, when filled, will be able to accomplish things that we aren't able to accomplish right now. And again, I'm not trying to butter you up or anything. I just think there's a lot of wisdom behind here, as well as on this side, but especially on this side. And I want to make sure we acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Becky Coates-McKeever, 171 Grand Avenue, speaking in opposition of hiring the chief of staff. The mayor ran for re-election knowing the responsibilities of the position. During his campaign, did he mention he wanted or needed a chief of staff for the current term in office? The mayor is elected to represent the city in public settings, but now he wants the chief of staff to do some or most of that rather than himself. If the chief of staff will oversee projects and organizational development, then why is there already a planning development director, which was created in 2022, and a clerk was added in 2023? As previously stated, the cities our size do not have a chief of staff. Why do we need a chief of staff to be a liaison or a middleman between the mayor, his department heads, city council, news media, etc.? Mayor responsibilities when reelected without the chief staff position. Mayor already has a following serving at the pleasure of the mayor: a secretary, 2 clerks, human resources, EEO director, information technology specialist, development and planning director, and safety service director. We also have a parks and recreation director. Our tax dollars do not need to be spent on another administrative position, which allows the mayor to potentially delegate more of his responsibilities to this new position. Money could be better spent on city projects, infrastructure, and services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nancy McNeely. I live at 14 Applewood Drive, and I'm opposed to the chief of staff position as well. Mrs. Payne, you said something in regard to grants, that this person would be working more on grant writing. Is that correct? Well, my question is why there's a need at this time when that position has not been filled for how many years? 12 years. So what's the urgency now? And if there's some sort of special project or what, I think that with the staff that's currently there, if they can pull together and do it. After all, they've been doing it for 12 years. So I don't understand why we should pay for that position, which would be $60,000 to $80,000 base pay. Okay? That does not include benefits. So you're talking about $100,000 or more expenditure. And I think you all need to think long and hard about it. People are struggling to pay taxes, insurance, and everything else. Food cost, everything's risen drastically. And that amount going out from the taxpayers, your constituents, seems a little unfair when it hasn't been necessary for 12 years. So I think you need to really think about it.
Thank you.
My name's Larry Depew, 34 North MacArthur Street, Chiillicothe. My question is, why does the mayor need a $107,000 administrator when he ain't even making $100,000 a year? His pay is less. So why does his secretary or administrative assistant, whatever he calls her, need more money? Taxpayers is paying all these bills. We're the ones that has to pay it through our income tax, through our property tax, gas tax, you name it, tax. So I don't think it needs to be made as a permanent position. If the person is already there, they're probably getting pretty decent pay already. So that's my stand on it.
Thank you. That concludes the audience participation. Oh, we've got another person.
And so this is just a continuation of last week. Miss Henderson and I have been working on, oh, do I have to turn it on? Oh, Patty Schaefer, 3590 State Route 207, Chiillicothe, Ohio. Sorry about that. Miss Henderson and I have been working on the duck geese problem, and Clint Boggs and I meet on Wednesday or Thursday, and Clint and I is going to talk about, and we're going to brainstorm, and then we'll get back to you, and then we can go from there. And so I also want to tell you that I'm not the administrator, but there is a Facebook page. It's called Yokanji Park Pals. And currently out there's a group that's been organized. It's called Trash Bags and Tail Wags. And it's a public event by Melinda Smith. And tomorrow they are going to, it's Petco Grooming Salon is hosting their 3rd annual park cleanup. So that's good. We've got somebody right there. And of course, Crystal Ray, she's the one that, she's the administrator on this page. And she's the one that's kind of nurses the ducks and nurses things down there. But anyway, so tomorrow night from 4 to 5. I'm not sure that I can make that because I have to work in Columbus on Monday and Tuesday night. That's still why I'm dressed like this. So that's kind of what we're doing. We're touching base. And I just want to say, if any of you want or need anything in the parks, just get a hold of me. And Miss Henderson, I would like to, after this is over with, that you and I touch base just every month. And, I kind of give you a little formal report of what I see or what I know down there. So I'm going to ask that of you. Lastly, I didn't come here for this, but I just want to put my 2 cents worth in on this chief of staff, or what we're talking about here. And you said that this group of people is working on grants right now. And did I hear you say right that they have gotten like $300,000 in grants? But that's out of their regular job duties, and they've been doing that. Is that the way that? And so here's what I want to say, because I think of dollars. If I'm paying somebody $100,000, and I don't know that's how much, if I'm paying $100,000 and they can bring in grant money of $300,000, I've more than doubled my money. I'm tripling my money here. They can bring these grants in here. I can pay that person and they go out here, plus the other duties that I can have them do. And they've got me $300,000 of grant money or maybe more. And they can work on the streets with that grant money, or they can put it in the park, or they can put it here or there. Then it's a good deal. And you guys know that I'm a number person because I'm an accountant, and that's what I do. And I'm a financial person, and I also teach accounting and finance. So, hey, anytime you can triple your money, you better go to it. Thank you.
Hold-
You want to talk? I don't think I can because I've already talked. There's a lot of questions raised.
Oh, where from you mean?
You go ahead, please.
Okay, listen. This is Janet Griffith. I live at 603 Comanche Road. I like this discussion tonight because it's not political. It's everybody that can say what they want to say, and it's respectful. And I think one of the things that we need to do is establish respect again for everybody, for every person that serves the public, the council, the commissioners, the mayor. I mean, we might disagree, but we can be respectful when we do it. So, and I would like to say this. I lived through the time when we were on fiscal watch. Before that, we had plenty of money. We had a mayor that felt like we had plenty of money. We did this, we did that, we did this, we did that. Our city wasn't in any better shape for it. The sidewalks still look terrible for the World Heritage coming in. I think the paving needs done. And citizens are taxed a lot with their money now. You look at your bills, your utility bills. The sewer went up $8 a month to pay for the surtax. It went up another 8% because it's a normal raise. Everything is going up. We don't need to put ourselves in fiscal watch again. And that's what's going to happen if we keep spending and don't fix what we have and work with what we have. So I don't know how the council's going to vote, but I'm going to respect how they vote because I know they're good people. They give up their time, they give up their families to do this. The mayor does too. We owe them respect, but we also have our own opinions. And so what I'm asking you tonight is to vote the way you want to vote. So, and thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes the audience participation. And at this point, we'll move on to old business. Is there any old business?
Yes, I'd like to speak again about the chief of staff position. And I know you guys heard me plenty on this, and I'll continue to talk about it. The mayor circulated some information about comparable cities, going off of what I had submitted earlier, but he added 3 cities to that. I agree with the mayor when he says that no 2 cities are alike. We're all completely different. We have to find ways to make our city work and be functional with what we have available. And he's absolutely correct with that. But we can look at these other cities and look at full-time equivalents and how they do their jobs and try to determine best practices that other cities do to help make our city that way as well. Now, when I looked through this list of cities, he added Zanesville, which is a standalone city, similar size. I can go with that. But he also added 2 suburbs of Columbus in the comparable list. One of those was Grove City. The other was Grandview Heights. These are suburbs of Columbus. They have more money, they have more resources, they have more people, and they pay a lot better than we do. We can't compare ourselves to those 2 type of communities. I called a gentleman that I went to a high fire executive program with at Norwich Township, which is the city of Hilliard, their fire department. Talked to him about their fire department and how they do. They have 7,000 runs a year. Our city has 7,000 runs a year. Asked him, I said, how many fire department personnel do you have? 90. How many does Chiillicothe have? 45. Ask him, what's your minimum staffing every day? 23. Chiillicothe's is 10. What do your firefighters make top pay? $105,000 a year. And I know that because we just lost one of our firefighters to that location. Our top paid firefighter is $75,000 a year. They make 40% more. Comparing us to suburbs of Columbus is not a fair representation. We did not do that when we negotiated firefighter contracts from the union side when I did it from that side, or from the city side when I did it as fire chief. So when we look at comparable cities, we need to make sure that we look at cities that are standalone like us, not comparing ourselves to suburbs of the big cities, Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Dayton, those kind of places. Janet, you said work with what you have. In 2015, we eliminated the assistant fire chief position. All the while, we continued to do long-term planning, developed a 40-year capital budget plan for the fire department, and I had an assistant chief that wrote over $2 million in grants for the fire department during that time period. We were able to do more with less because we focused on what was important and took care of the people around us. And it worked for us. The other thing that I'd like to talk about is the carry forward that the mayor mentioned. Allison passed out some papers there if people want to look at it. But the mayor mentioned that in 2023, we carried forward almost $5.2 million. 2022, it was just a little over 3.9. We saw an increase of almost $1.25 million in carry forward. That got me to thinking, where did that money come from? So I looked at 2 areas. One was the 2015 safety levy, and the second one was the insurance holiday that we had last year. So the safety levy in 2015 was written, it says the ordinance providing for a 0.2% levy income for increasing safety services, safety forces in the police department and fire department effective January 1, 2016. It's important to know what the baseline was when we passed that levy in 2015. The police department had 42 uniformed members. Fire department had 38 uniformed members, and dispatch had 3 dispatchers. So what did we budget for last year? 49 police officers, 41 of those, which is less than what we had in 2015, were paid out of the general fund, and 8 were paid out of a federal grant. That means 0 were paid out of that safety levy last year. So $0 out of that safety levy report were put towards police officers. We had 7 firefighters paid out of that levy last year at a cost of approximately $586,000. And we had 5 dispatchers paid out of that at a cost of approximately $436,000, totaling $1,022,000. What did that safety levy bring in last year? Well, according to the auditor, it brought in $1,951,890. But we only spent $1,022,000 of that. So that means out of that carry forward into this year, over $900,000 of that should be dedicated to safety services, not to general fund carry forward. Beyond that, we had between $500,000 and $600,000 that we saved for insurance holiday because we followed what the insurance committee wanted us to do, and we saved money on our insurance premiums last year. If you take the $929,000 and the $500,000 from the insurance holiday off of the carry forward, our carry forward would only be $3.75 million. What should our carry forward be? Should be 2 months of our expenditures. 2 months of our expenditures are about $4 million. So that puts us under without those 2 additional items that we had last year. So my recommendation is still that we do not fill this position and we focus on our safety services. I think that is the priority for our city moving forward. Whatever we vote tonight, and again, I agree with Janet, is that each one of us needs to vote our conscience and do what we think is right. Whatever that decision is tonight, we as a group, council and the mayor and the administration need to move forward and focus on what we can do to make our city better, whether if it's with the chief of staff or some sort of restructure within our management team. We need to focus on what is best for the city moving forward and take care of Chiillicothe. Thank you.
Is there any other old business, Mr. Prohl?
Yes. Excuse me, sir. I'll get the mic on there. I also want to talk about the chief of staff position, and I appreciate everybody coming and sharing. It's great to have people looking at, whenever you have a problem, looking at it from different angles, trying to take then all those different angles and see what is it that we're shared in this. What's our common goal? First off, before we get started, I wanted to kind of talk about kind of where we were with this position. You might ask, I believe someone did, that how did we get along so long without this position? And for those of you unfamiliar, we did have a chief of staff until the recession hit. And when that recession hit, cuts became unavoidable across the city. And one of the things that we tried to do at that time was to protect our police and fire. That was our priority, to maintain that. And so we held off on cuts as long as we could, and we started to dwindle down all the other departments. Some of the departments went down to just being one person, which, talk about stress on one individual. So this was a situation that was kind of unavoidable. It was a product of the time period that the city did the best they could to stay afloat. And I think, when you look at the other cities in this area and some of the cities that faced serious, much more serious financial problems than Chiillicothe has, as a result of that recession, we were lucky in a lot of ways that we were able to come out it as good as we did. But it was a painful time. It was a time when we ended up laying off people right before Christmas one year, and I remember, and I tell you, that breaks your heart. It's a tough time. You don't want to have to go through that again. So filling this position now, what would that mean? Well, the reason we had that in the first place is because we've always thought that this city was a special city, that it may not be a suburb of Columbus, but it's just as important as any suburb of Columbus. The people here are just as valuable to me as anybody anywhere else in this state or anywhere else in this country. And I believe that, we have the opportunity to build a great city here. And this position that we had, even though it was lost, the workload wasn't lost. That workload was then passed on to other people. And, we can say, well, look, they may do. And they did. Because we have good employees in this city, people that were willing to buckle down, do their best, take on that extra weight. There was times where we had employees that took voluntary pay cuts. Even council took a voluntary pay cut during that time period, where we returned a portion of our salaries back to the city because it was that bad. To say that what you're doing now, we've given you this extra work and you've taken it, and then not to offer them relief at some point, I think it's a little unfair. These people stood up when we had a tough time. They gave their all, and now it's like, well, you survived it, so just keep surviving it. What we end up running into is that as people, in these positions, realize that, they could go somewhere else. They could make more money. They could have an easier job. That's a tempting thing. They stay because they love Chiillicothe. They're dedicated. But at some point you have to ask, what's best for their families, and should they think of something else? Being able to bring a position on like this could help us in a lot of different ways. And I sat down and was thinking about some of the things we could do with extra help. And I hear a lot of people, they want to pick at the mayor, saying, oh, the mayor doesn't want to do his job or this and that. The mayor does a fine job. This isn't about the mayor getting a big break. This is about what we could do to invest in our city. How can we better help all of our departments to do better for all of us? I don't like the idea of, ever squandering any type of tax money. I'm a very tight-fisted person when it comes to that. So when I hear people say, well, this is going to cost a lot, but it's really, when you think about, this is the cost of pretty much any kind of administrator anywhere in the county. This is the type of a cost that you're going to have a quality employee. A chief of staff could help with personal management, communication. They could help with community engagement, which is always important because this city works best when we work together. Having a person to assist in bringing people together and improve communication between the city, the departments, and the people means that we have more buy-in and support for the things that we do. Of course, the mayor does a fine job, trying to communicate with people, but it is something else that with this modern age and all the many ways that we can reach out to people, the opportunity for community engagement is beyond what a lot of us in the room have ever imagined. I know myself, I try to stay on top of technology, but it's growing and it's providing opportunities for people to reach out and be a part of their city government like never before. And I like that because when we talk about these big ideas of a government of the people and by the people, well, by golly, we better have the people involved. And so that appeals to me, is having someone that's going to engage people and try to make sure that they feel like their voice is a part of the city at every level. A chief of staff could also help protect could also work with project management. As we undertake large projects, when opportunities arrive, we should have someone ready to offer their support to our department heads and directors. We have $1.5 million for a housing project that is awarded to the city. That's a great opportunity. It's just one of the many great opportunities that have come to Chiillicothe in the last year. And these things are coming fast and furious, and we like that. I'm not going to complain when people are willing to, from the outside, are willing to invest in this community. But as a person who administered grants for over a decade, it's not as simple as someone writes you a check and you spend it. You are accountable for every penny that they give you. There are reports, there are timelines. It is a process, depending on the grant, that can require years of administrative time spent just to receive that money. So it's free money, but at a cost. The chief of staff could also help with things like labor relations, negotiations. Again, those kind of fall into communicating with our employees, which are really our most important commodity, the people that keep Chiillicothe running every day. Someone outside the mayor can sometimes assist with issues that come up, which means faster service and more attention to the needs of both the city and its departments. Currently, we offer, currently, a lot of other staff members are trying to carry the weight of our positions that a chief of staff once oversaw. And as they do someone else's job duties, by no fault of their own, they have less time to really devote to what they're assigned to do. Currently, our safety service director, often I see asked to do things that a chief of staff would be expected to do. In our community, we talked tonight about how important safety is. So why are we distracting the safety service director with administrative duties? Because we have to, because the job needs done. And of course, our directors have all stepped up, and really all of our employees have stepped up to do these things, but they need help. And this is our opportunity to do that. Another reason to invest in Chiillicothe and a chief of staff position is employee retention and continuity. As we pile work on these current staff, eventually we run the risk of just burning them out. And when we lose employees, not only do we lose a quality member of our team, but we lose that institutional knowledge. Being on council, I can tell you, and when Mr. Phillips giving his goodbye speech to council, he said goodbye to the old ones, and then he left me off the list, and I thought he forgot me, and he said no, and then the ancient one, and I know what he was meaning. I've been here for a long time. The knowledge that someone like myself has acquired just by sitting here at this table for so many years has a value to it, and we grow that, and that's why it's nice to see when we have council members come back year and again and run, because they start to build up that institutional knowledge. Well, we have that same situation with our employees. If we have a lot of turnover, we lose the information on just how was this done, why was it done, why shouldn't we do it this other way. Having that background and that continuity is a big help. When we're talking about the city itself and how the administration works, we're talking about a mayor, which is an elected official. And an elected official serves until we, the people, decide we don't want them to serve anymore. And when they're gone, there is a vacuum, and we try our best to transition. And I think that one thing we need to look at with a chief of staff, even though this is going to be somebody that's going to be politically appointed by the mayor, it doesn't mean that they're a political person. This is a person hired to serve the city. And that means that when we transition from administration to administration, this person can be a resource to the incoming mayor or incoming staff of what the city is working on at that time and keep the ball rolling. It's very tough when we have a lot of turnover at times. You can lose valuable information and valuable time. And as they say, time is money, so we don't want to lose any money for sure. Last, I wanted to take and just say that, I think there is kind of a narrative that we can only have this or that. And one of the audience members mentioned, why couldn't we have both? Well, exactly. As Jeff was giving you all these numbers, I think there was a little fuzzy there, but I would like to clarify that some of the money, when we're talking about this money being carryover, all that money that's being carried over is going to eventually probably be used for, we anticipate that's to guarantee that we can cover our employee paychecks. So I think some of that probably you can't just remove the safety service because we are going to use money to cover safety positions. But as you can see, if there is money available, why aren't we looking at adding positions from time to time and bolstering those departments? I don't think that we can say, well, let's take and we'll continue to put pressure on all of our departments and then we'll reward one department with one employee. It's not really going to help. Adding a single fireman or a single policeman is not going to have the impact that we could have if we looked at how we're funding these things. We mentioned grants. We've been very successful over the years with getting grants, but we've also missed a few here and there because we are stretched so thin that people aren't putting the time in to keep these things up. So I think there are opportunities out there, and I think that a job like this, a position like this, could open those opportunities for us to see increases in our safety forces, which I've always been for. As being, I spent 8 years with safety services as my committee, and I always felt a great responsibility to those departments, and because they are so important to our city. This position's already on the books. We have the money to fund it, and it's a position that I believe we need. It is my recommendation that we reward our hardworking staff and give them the support they need to help them continue to serve our city. And I think it's a good investment in Chiillicothe's growth. And I thank you for your time. I'm sorry it's so long-winded. I did edit this for time a little bit, so there you go. But thanks a lot.
Thank you. Is there any other old business or any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to petitions and correspondence that's come to council. I know that there's been some things that the mayor sent to the council folks that would all be public record, and you'd get a chance to see it if you'd like to get copies of it. But I know that some things were sent to council, but I'll ask the clerk if there was anything else to come to council.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. I have 4 email correspondence that I've received this week. I'm just going to go through them very quickly. The first from Stephanie Renner in favor of Agenda Item 1, the Chief of Staff position. The second is from Mr. David White, an email correspondence asking council to reject or reconsider the proposed legislation on feeding of wildlife. The third is from Mr. Jamie Brown, an email correspondence in favor of Agenda Item 1, Chief of Staff. And lastly is from Mr. Chris Weichel, an email correspondence. He has different issues within the city that he sees, and he would like to, he just wanted to make council aware that he has some questions. So I'll forward you his email.
Thank you. Turning to new business, pursuant to ordinance number 138.04, the city council president has the responsibility of appointing a member from this council to the nuisance abatement board. I want to give council an opportunity this week to think about whether you'd like to serve on that board and do whatever research you'd like to see what it is and what it involves. But by the end of this week, I intend to make an appointment. So you can't all hide completely. I will find someone and I'll make the appointment. I can't make you serve, but I can make the appointment. The second thing in new business is, once again, for you to think about this week, we're going to have a conflict with our meeting date relative to Memorial Day coming up. And I just request everyone to take a look at kind of the time that week. I'd like to have the meeting moved during that week, but I don't want to impose on someone if they've got something that's happening on a particular day, and we can come to a day that would work for everyone. So just please take a look at that. Is there any other new business to come before council? If not, we will move to the reading of the ordinances and resolutions.
Thank you, President Shoemaker. Item number 1 is the third reading of an ordinance authorizing the mayor's office to fill the mayor's chief of staff position, appropriating $70,000 to fund the position through the end of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Please call the roll.
Bennett,
No.
Creed,
No.
Payne,
Yes.
Prohl,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
McKeever,
No.
Barnes,
No.
Henderson,
Abstain.
The ordinance is not adopted. Next ordinance, please.
Item number 2 is the third reading of an ordinance appropriating $25,813.80 for costs related to Chiillicothe Police Department's annual Zurcher maintenance and fees, and for the purchase of AVL software for the computer-aided dispatch CAD system, and declaring an emergency.
Clerk will call the roll.
Payne, Henderson,
Yes.
Creed,
Yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
Prohl,
Yes. Michael. Yes. Yes. There we go. There we go.
McKeever,
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted. Next ordinance, please.
Item number 3 is the third reading of an ordinance appropriating $25,000 for repairs to the Chiillicothe Fire Department Engine 1 and declaring an emergency.
Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Prohl,
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Next ordinance, please.
Item number 4 is the third reading of an ordinance adding section 505.19, feeding of wildlife prohibited, to the codified ordinances of the city of Chiillicothe, Ohio.
Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Barnes,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
Henderson,
Yes.
Prohl,
No.
Creed.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Next ordinance.
Item number 5 is the second reading of an ordinance appropriating $25,000 for the payment of invoices relating to elevator and tornado siren repairs and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance, please.
Item number 6 is the second reading of an ordinance appropriating $31,500 for the budgeted 2022 engineering services and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance, please.
Item number 7 is the second reading of an ordinance authorizing the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, to complete the ROS 159.0.41 project ID 113013, establishing the city as local public agency and confirming the city's cooperation and agreement to maintain the project.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance, please.
Item number 8 is the second reading of an ordinance accepting and appropriating $1,091.34 received from the Ross County Auditor's Office for the city's share of drug fines in Ross County, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance, please.
Item number 9 is the second reading of a resolution authorizing the appropriate city officials to apply for and enter into an agreement with the Ohio Public Works Commission, OPWC, Grant Funds Program for the year 2025, accepting grant funds if awarded, and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance, please.
Item number 10 is the first reading of an ordinance accepting and appropriating $163.80 received from Rumpke and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance, please.
Item number 11 is the first reading of an ordinance authorizing the renewal of a 15-year term easement for the city of Chiillicothe to maintain the city's storm drainage facilities located on the property at Adena Mansion and Gardens.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance, please.
Item number 12 is the first reading of an ordinance accepting and appropriating an insurance reimbursement funds in the amount of $8,006.95 and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda.
President Shoemaker, I would like to make a motion to waive the 3-read rule on that.
Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Pearl? Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
Nickerson.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
McKeever.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Prohl.
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
3-read requirement has been waived. Call the roll relative to the ordinance, please.
Bennett.
Yes.
Nickerson.
Yes.
McKeever.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
Prohl.
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted. Next ordinance, please.
Item number 13 is the first reading of an ordinance amending the rules of council for the city of Chiillicothe, Ohio.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. Next ordinance, please.
Item number 14 is the first reading of a resolution approving the 911 plan for Ross County and the city of Chiillicothe and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance will move to the next agenda. That's all we have at this point in time. I would accept a motion to adjourn. Ms. Payne, seconded by Dr. Henderson. Clerk will call the roll.
Bennett.
Yes.
Payne.
Yes.
Nickerson.
Yes.
Barnes.
Yes.
McKeever.
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes.
Prohl.
Yes.
Creed.
Yes.
We stand adjourned. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight, and I thank you for your comments. Thank you.